Kim, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Ed. So I'm going to call this meeting of the Coventry Charter Review Committee to order. I'm going to begin by calling the roll. Michael Ball.
Here.
Bradford Inman is not here. Dorothy Giacovone.
Here.
Dorothy.
There she is.
Okay.
Here.
There she is.
Michael New does not appear to be here. Claire Murray. You're muted, Claire.
Here.
There she is.
Norma Smith. Not here. Sandra Restall
Here.
and Richard Williams.
Yeah,
All right. We have a quorum. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from June 16th, 2020 meeting. Do I?
Yes.
Who's that? Michael? Was that you, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a second?
second. I second.
Thank you, Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Okay.
Did it again. There's some typos in it, though. I don't know if that matters.
Are they typos that are, like, would it change the meaning of anything?
Only in the. No, I guess not really.
Okay, I mean, I think fixing them is important, but if it doesn't change the meeting, Dave, can we still just approve the minutes?
Absolutely. And Claire, if you'd like to send a quick note to Stephanie and you could just respond to her. She sent the minutes. She can make those corrections before the minutes are posted. So.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. It's just some of the wording the members discussed too and stuff. It was just more, I think it just goes along and it just types what it wants to.
Yeah.
If it's an actual word, it doesn't underline it for you. Okay, so moving on to 4.2, discussion of proposed revisions to charter, specifically Article 3. Oh,
So
I apologize.
if you
I
recall, yeah,
I had thought this had been.
this is the same agenda as Tuesday because of that double counting.
Yep, no problem.
We are actually on number 4.7, I believe.
Yep, okay.
Yes.
So we are going to go directly to 4.7, which is just discuss no lateral movement from office to office without intervening break in public service. I think we decided on Tuesday that we do not want to do this. This is about not being able to be on the school committee immediately after being on the town council if you've done your 2 4-year stints. Am I correct that we want people to be able to move laterally? So,
Toby said something about a break in between.
Dave,
They can move laterally, but there has to be a break in between, I thought.
4 years.
okay,
4
I thought we
years.
decided against that. So let's.
Dave, didn't you send out?
So
I got a form from you that has it written. Was it not from you?
no, I believe that was from me. That was actually sent out on Monday. And we didn't quite discuss that aspect of the proposed changes. So on Monday, everybody received the a document that included a number of things, specifically term limits for town council and term limits for school committee. Also on that same page was a provision that addressed lateral movement, meaning that you couldn't move from the town council to the school committee without taking time off. I do recall, consistent with what the chair mentioned, I thought that the feeling was to not do that, but certainly, you're free to discuss that this evening.
Does everyone have section 3.01 in front of them from what Dave sent us last week? Number, term,
I had it.
constituency.
Yeah.
I just seen Norma. I don't know, David, if we should put this into the minutes, but Norma has arrived at the meeting.
Yes, yep.
And
We'll make a note of that at 6:40, I think 6:38 Norma arrived. Welcome, Norma.
Thank you. I can't hook you up on my computer for some reason.
but we see you and we hear you. So,
I'm on the phone. I'm using the
oh,
phone
okay.
to get it on the computer for some reason.
So if everyone has it in front of them, it's paragraph 4. It says, in addition, any person who served as an elected member of the council shall be ineligible to run for elected office in the town until the passage of 2 years. The other day we had discussed the idea of letting people move to the town council from the school committee and vice versa, but it sounds like tonight we want to discuss that a little further. So I think what I'm going to do is just go in order of how I see you on my screen and ask if you have any input. Mike, do you have any input on that?
No, I think it's a good idea.
A good idea. Direction, I apologize. A good idea to take the break, or a good idea to let people just move from one to the other?
Take the 2 years off.
Okay. All right. It looks like Richard agrees with Mike on this. Does anyone have does anyone have any other thoughts that are alternate to that?
I have a question.
Sure.
If you are there for 4 years on a committee, then you can take 2, and then you take 2, and then you can go into another 4 years on another committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or not necessarily?
That's
Okay.
how it's being proposed, so that if you are elected to the, for example, if you're elected to the town council, and you serve a maximum of 2 4-year terms, you would have to not run for 2 years before you could run for, let's say, school committee. And if and vice versa, if you were on the school committee and you served 2 terms, you would have to take 2 years off before you would be eligible to run for the town council.
Right.
Can I ask, the way this reads, Dave, and maybe I'm wrong, it reads that even if you serve just 1 term on town council,
Yes, that is how it reads. It's if you were elected, you can't move laterally. I just wanted to incorporate the comments from Tuesday of the term limits. That's all. I meant to reflect that. So even if you served on the council for 1 4-year term, you would still have to take 2 years off before you could run for another elected office in town.
Does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah, because it'd probably be a conflict of interest.
I mean, but if you have 4 years on the town council, you have to take 2 years off before you can go to the school committee. That's what that sounds
Right.
like.
Yeah,
That's
that's
correct.
what it sounds like to me too, Richard.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody agrees that that's how it's stated. Does anyone, like I said, have any thoughts as to wanting to let people move from one to the other?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What if somebody is on either council or school committee and their term isn't finished and they decide to run for, I think that just happened recently, somebody from school committee ran for town council and their term wasn't finished.
Oh, her
And
term wasn't
Dixon.
finished?
They wouldn't be able to do it.
It was Ann Dixon.
Right. I'm just curious how that works there.
It sounds like they wouldn't be able to do that either, because it doesn't say they have to serve their full term. It just says they had to serve as an elected member of the council.
No, that's why I'm asking the question, because she did that, which, you know, there's no problem in that. But if you're looking at something like this, you have to consider somebody who's already in the office that wants to run for either school committee or council.
Well, this wouldn't go until the voters vote on it again. So anybody like Craig Levis that's in it now, that
Right.
wouldn't affect him at all.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in the future, say somebody's on the school committee, or, use that example. She ran from school committee to town council. What would happen, and her term wasn't finished? What will happen in that situation when the term isn't finished? Can they still do that, or do they have to wait the 2 years?
You'd
No.
have to wait the 2 years.
To wait the 2 years.
You'd have to wait the 2 years. Whether,
Okay.
it's not about whether the term is finished or not. It's about
Okay.
whether the person was elected.
Right, okay, I'm just, because I know she did that, and there was nothing wrong with her doing that. I just want to,
No, under our current charter, it was fine to do.
I'm just, want it clear in my mind that whether you're in
Absolutely.
office, you haven't finished, it still goes to the 2-year wait.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, any other discussion? All right, I am hearing nothing. So I guess I'll just read. Any person who served as an elected member of the council shall be ineligible to run for elected office in the town until the passage of 2 years. I'm going to make a motion for that. Does anyone second that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sandra, you were in favor, right?
Yeah, oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so the motion passes.
Thumb up.
Thumb up, yes, not all the fingers, okay.
No, it was just, I started my nays.
Just a thumb, Sandra.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
So- So, Madam Chair, I think given that the same language appears in the council proposal, I think you should take a vote on that as well, because that also pertains to lateral movement.
You mean the same in the school committee?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes, just so we're clear.
Agreed. Do we all, I also make a motion that we will have the same language in the school committee section of 4.01, so that if you serve as an elected member of the school committee, you cannot move laterally to another elected position in town.
Yes.
Second, I think
I second it.
Richard seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Okay, moving on to 4.8. This is about adding items to the council agenda. And I believe that this was in reference to the fact that only the president of the town council is allowed to choose what goes on the agenda. And that other members of the council should get to put things on to be discussed as well. Anyone, if you could just put your hand up if you have any thoughts on that, one way or the other. Yes, Dorothy.
I think each council member should have the right to speak and be vocal about their district. Their constituents are waiting to hear from them. They should have the right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if a member brings something up, the president is given that authority, by the council, right? Dave, am I right about that?
That is correct, yep.
And each council member is voted by their district. Each district should have equal say in what goes on the
What's
agenda.
put
as
on
far as
the
I'm
meetings?
concerned. What's that, Richard?
On what's put on the meetings, you mean?
Yeah, not that it's going
The
to
agenda.
necessarily be voted on, but that they discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Dave, would you be able to draft any language?
Yes, so, and I'm just looking through section 3.14, the powers and duties of the council, and I'm looking to see where the so 3.15 is procedure. And it says the council shall determine its own rules and order of business. And I think that that's where I would put in the provision, just add a sentence that says that any member of the town council may request an item appear on a council agenda. And that would make it clear, it would supersede the council's establishment of rules and order of business, because the rule that pertains to the town council president selecting items for the agenda, that's actually not in the charter, that's in the rules of the council that's adopted pursuant to the charter. So I think what we're looking for, what you're discussing, is to actually put something in the charter that mandates that any council member may add items to any council agenda.
Right.
I will prepare that and circulate that in advance of our next meeting.
Okay. So we're going to move past this without voting.
Yeah,
But
I think,
we are-
yes. If that's, I think what you should do is, I think you should take a vote that that's what the commission wants. In other words, that a motion that any council member may add items to any council agenda. And then I will prepare the necessary document, and we can ratify that at the next meeting.
So Dave, who's doing it right now? Just Mr. McGee?
My understanding is pursuant to the rules of the council, in other words, the way the council operates, that it's the council president who sets the agenda.
Okay.
Okay. So once again, Dave, what is it that you would like us to vote on? Because I'm going to see if we had any more discussion on this.
Sure. So I think the motion would be a motion to authorize any member of the town council to add any item to any council agenda.
Right.
And if someone says so moved, then you can get a second.
So moved.
All right, Sandy,
Second.
so moved. Claire, do you like to second? Because I think you both moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, who's opposed? I think it was a timing issue with Zoom. I believe
Yes.
everyone was in favor. Okay. So 4.8, we will vote on actual language at our next meeting.
Yes.
Now, 4.9 is town manager candidate requirements and qualifications. We had discussed this, and I believe what we decided on was, Dave, we want to know if you can put, we will give preference to a Coventry resident or someone willing to be a Coventry resident, but anyone can apply.
Yes. So you could add, I can add a preference language to the existing language, but I just something to keep in mind, and I know Brad had some disagreement at the last meeting about this point, but if you look at the language that the council has already approved, which was circulated on Tuesday, the ending sentence there says residency shall be guided by Rhode Island General Laws 44-15. I don't want to misquote it, but
I got it. Right here.
yeah, residency of the town manager shall be governed by Rhode Island General Laws 45-2-15.2. So certainly, if you want to have a vote on including a residency preference in that language, we can certainly amend that to include a residency preference. I do strongly encourage, however, retaining the language that cites the general law in that existing document the council has already worked on.
Okay. So I make a motion that included with the language that the council has already provided to us, we should add a line saying that we will preference towards Coventry residents and those willing to move to Coventry.
Right.
Do I have a
I
second?
second.
Thank you, Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No,
Dorothy and Claire are opposed. Am I correct? Okay. The motion does carry. District updates is 4.10. Discussion of practice and procedure vis-a-vis RI Open Meetings Act requirements.
Madam Chair, if I may just explain that. So
Great.
I think as everybody is aware, there had been a practice of including on council agendas District 1 update, District 2 update, District 3 update, that type of thing, especially when a particular council member had some interesting news that they wanted to share about the goings-on in their district. The Rhode Island Attorney General, who's in charge of enforcing the Open Meetings Act, has started to read the Open Meetings Act, I think, very strictly, which requires that any item on an agenda fairly inform the public of the business to be discussed. So we recently had a situation where there was a District 1 update, but the substance of the update was not listed on the agenda, and that was deemed an open meetings violation. So in light of that, what I think the plan is, and I think it is actually tied to adding items to an agenda at the request of any council member. I think that's what this is tied to. But someone had requested that agendas specifically include district updates. And what I wanted to just inform the Charter Commission is that we have to go beyond just district updates. We can't say District 2 update or District 3 report. You actually have to say District 1 update on this item or that item. We have to specify what is going to be discussed, because if we don't do that, it's an open meetings violation. So to sort of bring that issue in context to changing the charter, I'm not 100% sure that we necessarily need to do anything, and the reason I say that is because you've decided to adding items to an agenda by any council member. So if someone wanted to have a district update, they would have to specifically list the items that they wanted to discuss. Now, that brings with it sort of a practical problem, and I'll just sort of frame the practical problem. So if you have a council meeting on a Monday evening, and the person giving that district update would have to know 48 hours before that Monday meeting what items they wanted to discuss. So if there was, like, say, a coffee hour with a council member, you'd have to actually list the date and time, and make sure that that was on an agenda so that you didn't get an OMA violation.
Dave, who's writing these rules? Man.
Well,
Hands.
it's so the Open Meetings Act has always specified that, if you're going to discuss business, you have to specify what you're going to discuss. I think it's fair to say that prior attorneys general have had different views on interpreting that language. Some attorneys general in the past have given a little bit of latitude to those requirements. This attorney general is interpreting the provisions of the OMA very, very strictly. So that's where the rules come from. The rules have always been there. They're just being applied very strictly now.
I think if our issue before, it sounds like you're saying, Dave, is that people couldn't add what they wanted. So they just fit it in during their district update.
Yes, that's exactly right, Chair.
So it does sound like if they're able to do this now, I mean, I wouldn't want to make an additional change, just put someplace else in the charter, which could just add chaos to confusion. But that's just my thought on the matter. Does anyone have any other thoughts?
Sounds like they have to do it in advance.
Right.
It's the only difference.
Well, yes, which in order to add something to the agenda, it has to be ready for when it's posted publicly. So it sounds like maybe we've nipped this one in the bud.
I think you have, with regards to the language change to section 3.15, where any counselor can add any item to an agenda.
In advance, it should be.
Yes.
Oh,
It always has to be 48 hours in
Yeah,
advance.
that's what I thought.
But I think because of the laws of the public meeting laws, Richard, because it has to be posted in advance like that,
Yep.
by saying they can put it on the agenda, you're saying it has to be in advance.
Sometimes you have to put the words though.
Oh.
'Cause people are sometimes very specific.
I'll leave that one to Dave.
And they're
I'll let
sneaky
him know.
sometimes.
All right, great. So 4.11 concerns mail-in balloting and voting. What people wanted to be able to do just for the town as opposed to specifying that it needs to be done at the Coventry High School?
No, I don't think so. We have absentee ballots and you go that way.
Do you have to prove that you can't make it to the polls in order to do an absentee ballot?
Yeah. Probably. But you know who it is too. Because
I
the
don't know,
other way is
mail-in
no voter ID the other way. I've seen these ballots that the state sent you for mail-in ballots. There's no way to know who's voting on it. The person who's getting the ballot says, oh, that's me. Yeah, that's me. I'm the one voting. How was that getting voter ID? I think we have to know who's voting.
Agreed.
I'm actually strongly in favor of being able to do mail-in ballots. I think 110,000 people in Rhode Island voted that way this year in our federal elections. If it's allowed on a federal level, I would want it to be on a local level. If there's a way though, and I don't know legally what we can ask people for, Dave, you know, I don't know that you can say you need this notarized or you need
It should be.
So
a witness or what.
I'm 100% against it.
So there is
I know you
a,
do have to say, I'm being honest, this is me. So you're. Who's speaking?
so let me just try to address the question, which is, I think, a mix between the chair's question and Mr. Williams' question or comments. So there exists now mail-in ballots, there exists provisional ballots, there exists emergency ballots, and there's 3 different categories, okay? So if you know that you're going to be traveling, let's say, on an election day, you can go into town hall, and as the law exists right now, you can fill in a mail-in ballot and submit it that way. If you have an adult child over 18 who's away at school, I know no one's away in this COVID-19 situation, but if you had a college student that was away somewhere in a different state, you could get a mail-in ballot for him or her and have them submit that mail it in, and it's counted on election day. So I guess there is a mechanism to do that already. So I think my question is to the chair, what is it that you're proposing that's different than that process?
I think as long as a provisional ballot can be, I might have to work on that Tuesday, and
Sure.
I want to make sure that I can vote. I don't have access to a car, and I want to make sure I can vote. I don't feel I'm healthy enough to stand in line and I want to be able to vote. So whatever I don't want to go to the polling place. I want to get this done by mail. As long as anyone who makes the choice that they want to do it can, I'm fine.
Yes, so under all of those circumstances, and let's assume that a person, let's say their legs are not well enough to stand in line and vote, that person could fill out a could obtain a mail-in ballot ahead of time and submit that ballot without having to appear on election day. So I think, and again, I'm not here to dissuade or change your mind on any of ideas that you have, but I think that there's already a mechanism in place to allow for that. Mail-in ballots, again, usually done well in advance.
Yep.
There are provisional ballots, and then there are emergency ballots, because sometimes someone may show up to a balloting location and not have identification. I believe those can be taken as emergency ballots, and they're certainly vetted against the rolls by the Board of Canvassers, during the election process.
With their ID.
Yes.
Can I ask on a provisional ballot, how does it differ from the mail-in ballots?
Offhand, I don't know, but I can get you that information.
Because Richard is right. I was surprised by how little I had to offer.
I think a provisional ballot is on the day of the election. If you can't,
Oh, did I say provisional? That's my mistake.
they have them the day of the election. If you can't vote because the machine doesn't approve you or whatever, and there's an issue, you can fill out a provisional ballot.
That's
Day of
my
the
fault,
election.
Norma. I meant absentee ballot.
Absentee ballot. Yeah, provisional's the day of the election.
Mhm.
An absentee ballot is very similar to a mail-in ballot. So an absentee ballot, you would make the request ahead of time. Typically, you'd go to town hall, obtain the ballot. You'd be able to fill it out and send it in. But you're still doing that with proving who you are and those vetting processes.
But proving who you are, how?
ID.
With an ID.
You have to go to.
Photo ID.
So you have to
Three
go to
IDs
the
you
town
get from the
hall.
state registry. Voter IDs. And they're free from the state registry.
Yep. I just didn't realize that if you needed to be absentee, you had to go to your town hall. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Do it ahead of time.
It's
Yeah.
not really for this
Who you
discussion.
are.
Not the day of the election, you have to do it ahead of time.
No, I know. But if I'm a college student and it's September and I'm away at school, I have to come home.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask Dave. How do they prove who they are?
I believe that you have to get them ahead of time, especially the absentee or the mail-in ballot, and there is a process whereby they're vetted. I believe they're vetted when you actually physically get the ballot, because you can. So the local boards of canvassers, they're the ones that are charged with running elections, and you can obtain voter information by going to the Board of Canvassers. So you could know who voted in a primary, in a general election, who voted by mail-in ballot or absentee ballot, and you can actually get the data of how a person voted, not who they voted for, but if they voted by mail, that information is available from the canvassers.
Everything now is already in place, basically.
Yeah, I think so. But I just wanted to try to understand if the chair had a different concern.
No, I just didn't realize that in order to get an absentee ballot, you had to be present.
No, you can
Yeah.
do it way in advance.
I know that, but you have to be present.
You have to show up at some point in time to get
Right.
the ballot. Yes.
In
Okay.
person, right?
Yeah.
Could be a dead person voting.
I didn't realize it was in person. I never absentee voted, so I didn't know what the process was.
Sure.
But I think for the local Coventry voting, I'm fine with that.
Claire, I did an absentee vote for the first time ever this time. And I knew I wasn't going to the polls with what's going on. I'm not really going anywhere. So, and if hundreds of people came out, how long would I stand in line? And that wasn't happening either. So I received in the mail a form that asked me, did I want a ballot? And then I filled that out, and that had all my information on. And when I got my ballot, what I remember is that it asked for my license or my.
You can ask for your last 4 digits of your social security number or your license.
Or your license, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So that says who you are. I think my name, I don't know if my name was on the ballot, but it came to me at least in an envelope.
Yeah, your name was.
Yeah, you have to also remember that your voter registration is tied to an address. So if they're mailing if you're mailing a voter registration to you at your address, they know who it's going to, presumably.
Yeah, the license will have the address on it when they punch it in.
I don't
So
think
they
mine
know
does.
that's who's voting.
But how many hundreds of people in this last vote, the paperwork came back, they didn't get the vote? Like there was so much trouble with it.
I think there's trouble with in-person voting too, to a certain extent. But a majority of Rhode Islanders who chose to vote voted via mail-in ballot.
But there were challenges, and from what I heard a program on the radio, there are states that have done this for 10 years, just hundreds of thousands of people vote with the mail-in ballot, but they said that there's lots of challenges for a state that's just trying to do it on that big a scale, but they didn't say what those were. So maybe that's the kind of things Rhode Island experienced.
Nevada's one of those states that had problems.
Oregon, I think, has done it for some time.
Oh yeah, Oregon's done it a long time.
Yeah.
California does it, and they have people go collect the ballots. And that sounds really a disaster.
From your house?
Yeah, they go, from what I understand, they go send people out to pick up the ballots.
It's not the
It's
mailman?
ridiculous. They should, if they don't mail them in, they pick them up, I guess. I don't know how they do it. That's what I heard. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But California's wacky anyway. We don't want anything to do with California.
All right. So I think as far as mail-in balloting voting, is anyone on the council not of the opinion that absentee voting exists? Anyone can do it as long as they are able to get to the town hall at some point. And for local voting, that's fine. Does anyone feel otherwise? All right. So it sounds like because we're not making a change, we don't have to vote on anything.
There's
No.
nothing for you to vote on.
Oh, it's already in place.
All right. Fantastic. Separate voting on the municipal and school budgets instead of combining them.
No.
Why?
Why? It's a lot easier, all one vote. You want to get people to go out and vote, they vote once. The other way, you're going to have 2 separate votes, and a lot of times people aren't going to vote for one where they vote for both together.
Do they have to separate the time of the vote?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I mean, you could just say, do you approve the town budget? Yes or no. Do you approve the school budget? Yes or no.
That's what they do at the financial town meetings.
They don't have a
Or the
meeting.
vote.
Yeah, because the school committee's there and the council.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, so so the adoption of the budget is set forth in section 8.18 of the charter, and you'll recall that a recent change was that you have a public hearing on the budget where people can come and ask questions, and then there's typically an all-day referendum where the budget, the entire town budget, is voted up or down. That's what exists in place now. So I think what this item, agenda item 4.12, what this agenda item would contemplate is have a public hearing, have all the questions regarding the municipal budget, the town budget, the capital improvement plan, the school budgets, They're all presented, anybody can ask questions. But instead of going to a vote on the entire Town of Coventry budget up or down, there's a vote on the Town of Coventry budget municipal and Town of Coventry budget school. Two potential places to vote. I think that's what this agenda item is getting at. Now, whether that's a good idea, that's for all of you to decide. I just wanted to frame what I think the issue is.
Does anyone have any thoughts?
I think it's a bad idea.
That was just changed too.
What was just changed?
The financial take, yep.
Right, the meeting. That was Mr. Shively that did that.
Madam Chair?
So it was just changed to an all-day referendum. Yes.
No, I just want to say, and I do think it's a good idea. So if someone has a problem with the budget on one side but not the other, you can vote whichever way you want. So that way, if you feel the schools need more money, for an example, and you want to vote yes for them and no for the town, or vice versa, you have that option. Because if you feel, you know, you want to help one side and maybe not the other side in their demands, you can separate it out, because the only way you're going to be able to help one or the other is by giving to both.
Usually the expensive side isn't the town side.
Right, but I mean, we
80%
should
goes
give
to the
the,
schools. So that's
Right.
the problem. And I
80%.
went to the school
but that should
committee
be up to the people. That should be up to the people.
Yeah, we have it all together. It's up to the people.
Not together, separate.
Not separate.
Separate.
Separate, no. I went to the school committee meetings. I went to one, they were all against the whole financial town meeting because they said, oh no, it's not fair for the school. If they had a separate, we could get all the teachers together, we can get it, and we can get our money.
The
I went
voting.
to that meeting, that got me all too pissed off because you go to the financial meeting, everyone has an equal share. The other way, it's one side or the other. That's dividing stuff, and that's not a good thing.
But we're not doing financial meetings anymore. We're having all-day votes.
Yes, it should be one vote.
All-day vote.
We have financial town meetings. I went to
Not that you can vote on anymore.
Yes, all individual.
Not anymore.
You don't vote
Not
at
that you
them
can
anymore.
vote on anymore.
We don't vote on it. We vote on the all-day one.
Yeah, and the all-day one. So you would
Yes.
have it separate on
One
the
vote.
all-day one.
Shouldn't be separate.
Oh, I think it should.
But the budgets are two different totally budgets.
Yeah.
Schools need one thing, towns need another. So are we gonna just vote no for everything? Or can we have a choice, which I think is excellent. We should be able to decide. Do we think the school one's too much, too little? Same thing for the town. Otherwise you just, I don't know, lumping it together doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it does. Because otherwise, there's going to be a big vote on one side and hardly anybody vote on the other side because they all want
Well,
a certain agenda.
They're on
This
the
way,
same
everyone
ballot.
the agenda has to be set ahead of time.
It's
They're
about
on the
more
same
money.
ballot.
And everybody will have a choice. The people will have a choice.
And they're on the same ballot. You vote for one and the other. Not two
That's
separate
right.
votes. It's all on the
It's
same
separate
ballot.
still.
Dave, do you know of any logistical reason why it couldn't happen?
You know any logistical reason why it should be separate other than special interest?
Well, I mean, the town is made up of, everyone probably has their own opinion one way or the other. And there are plenty of meetings people could go to where
Yes,
they-
there is plenty of meetings
There
to
it
be done.
is.
That's why they should be together.
people don't.
No,
go to
no.
So all I can really speak to is that you'd have to look at, I think you have to give consideration to sort of a worst case scenario. So let's just imagine that you separate voting between municipal and school side. The real question is, what happens if you get an approval of the school budget and a non-approval of the municipal budget? Right now, what would happen is, and this is both in the charter and under state law, if you don't have an approved budget, you rely on last year's appropriation until you get an approved budget. And you can continue to add, in other words, you can continue to put the budget proposal or a budget proposal in front of the voters. I think there's the potential for some chaos if what you get is an approval of one piece and a disapproval of the other.
Yeah.
That's really the practical concern that I see by splitting them up. But I totally I totally understand where that comes from.
Do we have any ideas on what other towns do? Anything we might be able to look at language-wise, or how things seem to work out? I mean, I think Charahoe votes on their school budget separately, but I'm not sure.
Well, they do because they're a regional school district.
Yes.
So it's the same with Foster Gloucester and the same with Exeter West Greenwich. So you have the town vote, the town municipal vote, and then you have the school appropriation vote, but that's because they're a separate school district.
Yeah, it's two different areas involved.
Yeah, it's two different taxing authorities.
Different
That's correct.
taxing.
So their towns are separate, their schools together, so it only makes sense to vote for the school separately.
That's correct.
But still, even though that's the case, how does that work out? Like, it's something I feel like there's a lot of questions on. It's almost too soon to decide as a
Right.
committee to vote on something
Let's
like that.
table it.
Like, there might be
Well, you can
things you
table.
want to look at.
You could table it. I can take a look at other at some other comparable charter language. I frankly don't think you're going to see a town charter that allows for voting on a school budget and a municipal budget differently, because ultimately at the end of the day, the Coventry budget is supposed to provide for both the municipal and the school side. But I will take a look, and I can report back to the commission next week. And
Like that.
So I have a question. Just what you just told us before was that if it doesn't pass, then you put together another budget and put it out. So that's what happened last year. So if the
Yeah,
town
that was
budget
terrible.
passes, if the town budget passes, but the school does not, why cannot another budget be put together for just that one?
For just the
For
school.
just the school?
It should be for both then.
I'm not saying I'm not. I think I said that you might have chaos because you're essentially now getting, in other words, your taxing authority. So if you approve the municipal budget and you approve a tax levy, and then you're
Yeah.
constantly changing the school department budget, I don't think you could actually start working under the approved tax levy municipal budget, because you don't know what the school is going to, what the school budget is going to come out to. So yes,
Okay.
I think you're correct. Procedurally, if the school budget did not pass, that part would go back to the school committee, presumably to be vetted again, okay? But at some point, I think you're going to run out of runway, because at some point you're going to be into the new fiscal year, but you're not going to have an approved budget. And if all you have is an approved municipal budget, but you haven't made provisions for the school funding, I think that's just going to create chaos.
I do think that we almost ended up in the same issue last year anyway, where we had no budget for anything.
That's correct. But remember, when you, like I said, under state law and under the charter, existing charter provisions, if you can't get a budget approved and you then you start your new fiscal year, at least the law provides that you at least have the funding available and the taxing authority available under the prior year approval. So you can continue to operate until you get an approved budget and an approved, because remember, it's not just a budget, it's a budget, it's a tax levy, it's an appropriation plan. So it's yes, it all comes out to a budget, but It's really also on how are we going to tax ourselves?
Yeah.
And
There's only one tax. It's not
Right.
two separate taxes.
exactly, exactly.
Otherwise, it'd be two separate taxes.
So it
That-
does seem that even if, say, we approved the town budget, we couldn't start spending at that budget until we could start taxing for that.
So we have a total budget.
And we
Correct,
can't
correct.
tax
We're
until
already
we
getting that with the
determine
fire
levy for the
districts.
whole- All right. That's interesting. Was anyone like to still see some language and maybe see how this works elsewhere?
Yeah,
I know
I
there's
think
a
it should
local-
be tabled. He can investigate the
Yeah.
other things.
Definitely,
Yep.
definitely. So is everyone good with tabling this?
Yes.
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 And discussing further at a later date?
Yep.
Great. And 4.13 references the authority for the council to hold appropriation power, eliminating the fiscal town meeting.
The people have to have a say.
What?
The people have to have a say.
but the
They
people
do
did
have
have a say. They had a vote on, the people voted, didn't they?
That's it. This here says they're gonna have a whole.
You can't just
whole
have 5
floor.
people
It's
running the whole
Saturday.
town.
Council.
You'd vote for your town council members and they would vote on the budget.
And my guy didn't win.
Nope, that happens. My guy didn't win either on a much higher level, but
Yeah, but I gotta have my own personal say
but
at the meetings.
I will honestly say I'm the one who put this in because I feel we let a very a willfully uneducated population, and I don't mean uneducated as far as schooling. I mean people are willfully ignorant about how our budget works.
Mhm.
And there's some that are
They just say they don't want to
overeducated
raise their taxes.
morons
Can you just
too.
wait
You
one
want to say it
second,
that way.
Richard? Richard, can you just wait 1 second? Because I do want to hear you.
Okay.
But people don't educate themselves, and then they get to vote on something as important as the budget, which means that I've lived in this town for 3 years. There hasn't been a year that's made any financial sense to me. But Richard, you please.
No, everybody has to have a say. They should. And I don't think that certain elitists should have the only say either. You're saying the other way. There's both ways of this. There's two sides of a story.
Elitist?
Yeah, you
Sure.
should just have 5 people controlling everybody.
Yeah. Everyone follows the leader. That's not right either. Everyone should have a say.
Well, for the state budget, we elect a governor. For the federal, we elect our senators and representatives. In the town level, everyone gets to vote. I just don't feel as if people take it seriously, and voting's a privilege, and they don't do it.
Can I-
No, I've been
Yes.
going to the council meeting 17 years.
Madam Chair?
Dorothy, please.
If I'm not mistaken, and I could be, but I remember a few years back that was on the ballot, eliminating the financial town meetings, and the people actually voted on that.
But I think they decided to do an all-day referendum. So
That's what
wasn't
it
that
was,
they
all-day
didn't wanna
referendum.
vote, it's that they
Right.
wanted to vote differently.
So what I'm wondering is, did a charter review committee change that, or was that put forth by the town council?
I don't think there's been a
Okay.
charter review committee for years,
Okay.
so I think it was the
Okay.
town council. Mike,
Okay.
Yeah, it was the council. I remember that because it was, Glenn didn't like it because it was inconvenient for them.
what, the financial town meeting?
Right. That's why we don't want just 5 people controlling the whole town.
Yeah, agreed.
That's fine. It wasn't something I expected to fly very far. But I do feel that people are just so willfully ignorant about it, and they really affects the town negatively. We lose a lot of teachers. Yes, Dave?
Just so everybody is aware, I believe earlier today, the General Assembly was taking up a proposed legislation that would allow a council in a town that has a financial town meeting to have appropriating authority this year due to the COVID situation. So I don't know how that has worked out or whether it will pass or not, but just so you know, the General Assembly may be weighing in on that particular question. And I will try to, for the next meeting, I will try to provide some updates as to where that legislation stands.
I
But we
heard that
don't-
they were considering that.
But we
Yeah,
don't
they
have
are.
a financial town meeting. Sorry, Richard.
I heard that they were considering that.
Dave, if I may interject on
Yeah.
that.
Yes, sir.
There's supposedly there'll be a full vote on that. The Senate, I believe the Senate was taking it up today.
Okay.
And it would allow only during an emergency situation like we have, when the
Right.
governor has declared a state of emergency, such as in this case with the COVID-19.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Ed. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
So that would mean for this year, the council would decide without
We don't
an
have a
all-day
financial town
referendum?
meeting, though.
I think what it would mean, if it in fact is passed by the General Assembly, I think it would merely provide an option for the council to do an appropriation this year. I don't think it means that would happen. If the General Assembly basically
Means it
provides
can.
right, enabling legislation to allow a certain action to take place.
Okay, so was there any other discussion as far as appropriation
How are
power?
you now, Brad?
What's that? Is that it?
And we still can hear you.
Anyone who's actually on the committee have anything they would like to add? Okay. I think that ends our agenda items, but we, oh, sure.
Can I just, last week, and Norma brought it up, when we hit 4.4, which is on the first page of the agenda, about the review of the boards and commissions and discussing the necessity of certain boards and commissions and all that, I don't remember that we actually went into it
We tabled it.
You didn't. It was
Tabled.
tabled.
until when?
Well, until I think we talked about getting some information to you. I talked about getting some information to you for tonight, but I haven't. Although I have a list of boards and commissions that are set forth in the charter, I was unable to get that into a document to share with you. So
Okay.
perhaps that can be taken up next Tuesday.
There are some that are not in the charter. I know I had to look, like Norma said, in a lot of places to find all the commissions and boards, some of which are inactive or haven't been, actually, we're considered inactive. You know, if you look it up, there is no
Yeah.
charter commission, review commission, things like that. Yeah,
Oh.
so I would like to, investigate that one a little further.
Yeah, I think, so I know I have a list that I'm working on. And also I had every good intention of asking the town clerk to investigate this, and I simply forgot to do it yesterday. So I will put that on the to-do list for tomorrow, and we'll aim to get you that information for Tuesday. And if I may add just one other item, if anyone would like anything added to the agenda for Tuesday's meeting or a subsequent meeting, if you could send me an email, and I will work with the chair on preparing that agenda and adding those items.
And you'll need that email tomorrow, right? We need to have that posted tomorrow.
Yes, I will need that tomorrow.
Okay.
Dave,
Need anyone else?
was Dave's boss on the Charter Review Commission a while back?
Yes, Nick was on the Charter Review Commission a while back, and
Right, 'cause
I don't think it's been that long since they met. Just so you know, the charter sets out the timeline of when Charter Review Commissions are scheduled to meet, and it's generally, I think, every 5 years or so. But I could be wrong as to when the last meeting was.
And I wish those things were dated, right? So we knew.
Right.
A lot of
You know,
changes were made in
there's just some
2010.
different ones in there that, like, I went into and it says inactive, or like a citizens advisory committee. I found 2 letters from 2014, 2016, and there's nothing about them anymore. A redevelopment agency that's inactive. Personnel boards inactive. You know, just different things like that in different places.
Well, I think
And
that would,
like a sewer board of review and a sewer
Committee, subcommittee.
subcommittee has the same people.
right,
Not
but
all.
they do have
lot.
different charges in terms of, and I'm happy to get into all of that, but I think it's helpful to do so when you all have the list of boards and commissions in front of you.
Okay, that's fine.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss about any of the new business on the agenda? And if not, then Ed, could you please open the phones for public comment?
Now he's not there.
No, I'm here. I'm on with
There,
Brad. You made it.
with seconds to
All right,
spare.
I'm going to get off the phone with you, sir. I apologize. I was trying to get Brad Inman into the meeting.
Okay.
Did you say you're ready for public comment?
Yes. Before I do that though, and Brad, I know you're just getting here. Did you have anything you had wanted to bring up tonight concerning the items listed on the agenda? Brad, can you hear me? Ed, why don't you open it up for public comment?
Brad, I don't know if you can hear this, but I don't see anything for a mic. Your mic is not connected in.
It doesn't appear to be off.
Right. As far as attendees, I only have 2 on that are watching the meeting, and neither one at this point have raised their hand in reference to asking a question.
Okay. So that being said, I make a motion to adjourn at 7:38.
A second?
Oh, was that you, Dorothy?
Yes.
Dorothy seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed? All right, thanks again, guys. Like Dave said, anything you would like to have on Tuesday or Thursday's agenda, if you could get that to him.
I have
I
one
can
question.
start.
I have one
Tim, is someone
question.
going to send us a list of the dates? It's like, I
Yes.
guess we talked about that.
Yeah, why don't we do that when we post the agenda tomorrow? I think I
Right,
was gonna do that.
Who's going to do it?
I can do it.
All
Or
right.
if you want to do it when you send out, but if I don't see it on yours, then I'll do it.
Okay, fair enough.
The next meeting's June 23rd?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
If Madam Chairman, if I may interject here a second. I usually start this meeting, I start the connection at least a half hour in advance. If for the next meeting, if you've got any concerns about connecting in, please try to connect in earlier. I'll try to walk you through or get you through what's going on if I can before the meeting actually
Okay,
starts to
okay.
avoid an issue with connecting in. So that's routine with me. I always go early so I can get anybody in who can't get in.
Yeah, usually I'm the first guy on, if you noticed
There
that.
you go.
I used to be the first guy on, but
Hey, Mr.
today
Discussion.
just wasn't working.
Wow.
It just, my phone wouldn't do it. So,
Fred, you got to stop sharing your cable with somebody else.
yeah, that's what I'm doing. Took my wife to figure
So
it out.
I want to know, how do we get to Ed if we're having a problem? Somehow when I had a problem, my daughter found, she sent in an email or a text message. She sent something and it came back, call this number, and that was Ed.
Right.
How
Yeah,
do
he
we get
sent
to,
us
how do
that.
we get to you? How do we get to you?
I will send an email out again tomorrow to all members with my cell phone number on it. So you can contact me there, or you'll have my email address as well. and just do it either way. If you're going to start in, like my phone's always with me, and I'll be on, and I will try to walk you through and talk you through getting in if you have an issue.
Okay.
Make sure your
Thank you.
phone's charged, Ed.
Always, I've got a battery right now just to make sure.
All right, enjoy that beach, Ed. Talk to you guys next week.
All right. Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Night.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.